separate from body and mind and all this amazing appeal. So one woman at one point, she asked a bit the same question, not as serious as yours, but she said, how can I explain that to my child? So then he looked at the woman and he said, but do you really understand Buddhism? Do you really know how to practice? And then she said, well, no, not really. I just did this one course. So then he said, well, how are you going to explain that to your child if you don't know how to practice it yourself? 6 years old. So there you can see, there it's like when you see these young tulkus and you have contact with them, then this possibility of rebirth becomes much more touchable in a way. That you say, like, this is not possible, that he has this only from this life. And also children who are very talented. Very young age they start to play piano and dance and do this. And sometimes YouTube videos you see these kids. So that's it. They learned this in another life and then they just continue. And this goes the same with our spiritual practice. Whatever we learn in this life, this is what we take with us. The only inheritance that we will have at the time of death, the only thing that we take with us is our karmic imprints. And that can be a very heavy burden, or that can be very light, and we can just continue on the path. So it's up to us. We do have a choice what we want to take with us. Now, again, it's this thing about, do I believe in rebirth, yes or no? So, it was Geshe Topten who said, well, if you do believe in rebirth, at least you're careful how you lead your life. So, even if there's no rebirth, it doesn't really matter, but you led a life that was worthwhile. At least you didn't harm many people. You were really careful of not harming others. And then there's no rebirth, well, who cares? And he said, but if you don't believe in rebirth and then you do whatever comes into your head, and there is rebirth, well, then he started laughing. I said, well, then you get a big surprise. Yeah. So then it's too late to regret. At the time of death, it's too late to regret. So this is why now we have to take the opportunity to see what do I want to put into my last suitcase when I have to leave this body and go somewhere else. So again, very personal. What do I believe? You have to ask yourself what happens after death. So yeah, children, karma. But if we can have some trust, if we we need to get familiar with that thought, and that takes a long time, so that we don't feel like the victim. Yeah. But if I know, Leora is very pleasant to me, and she's very helpful, and she tries to help me, but it's just an example, okay? I really deeply dislike her. She gets on my nerves. I don't like her haircut. She's got these red glasses. I think it's horrible. And then she thinks she's so clever. Blah, blah. And this expresses itself in my behavior towards her, that I'm rejecting her. Well, how long do you think she will be kind to me? As a good practitioner that she is, probably forever. Yeah, but in general, when it just turned the whole thing around. If you are kind to somebody and they just criticize you all the time, always point out your mistakes, and don't accept any of your kindness, very often we also become unkind. So then but when we are unkind, then we go, but this person started it. Okay, this is our view. But then, if I know that I have been unkind to Leora and then she turns against me, if I am reasonable and in my right mind, I don't feel like the victim. So what would happen? What would I do when I feel that, she starts to get upset at me and she starts to dislike me? What would I do? Would I continue my behavior? I would at least try to be kinder to her. At least try. And not feel like the victim, but also, this is my responsibility. I started it. So when we see the consequences, when we know that if I do this has consequences, then we are not so tempted to do that negative thing. We still do sometimes because it's habits. But let's say, do you always stop when the light goes yellow? Because that's a sign that you should start stopping there. What do you do when it gets yellow? You accelerate, you go, yeah? In general. Sometimes. The instinct in general is what? Okay, let's forget about you because you're all very good. But look, your friends who are not practicing, what is the instinct when the light goes yellow?
If there is a car in front of you.
No, you're the last one.
Accelerate.
Yeah, you accelerate. You're not really, we all know we're not supposed to do that. And sometimes it's just the last moment of red. But just imagine that you know that there's a camera which is always on. Always on. Would you do the same thing? Would you risk it that it goes, would you accelerate, although you know it's been yellow quite a while already? Would you risk it? No. Would you feel bad that this, would you suffer from that you have to stop now even though it's only yellow?
No. If you're in a hurry, but if you are...
Even you're in a hurry, how many minutes is the light red?
Sometimes 5 minutes.
Nah.
3 minutes.
Please, that's longer.
I don't know where it is. I think it's in India where it says how many more seconds it will go. That's very helpful for people to be more patient. Yeah. So if you would know that the camera is always on, you would not even be tempted. So we know about the law of cause and effect up here, and this unfortunate karma camera is always on, and it doesn't delete anything. Yeah, it retains everything, but we don't believe that it's on because we don't get the bill immediately. We don't get the fine immediately, or we don't get the reward immediately also. Yeah? So then when we are helpful to others and there is no immediate result, we get discouraged and we stop. Yeah? So the point is that you start to develop, you start to develop trust that the camera is on. Yeah. So also somebody else said at one point, doing actions or karma is like ordering something on the internet. It's very easy to order it, but then if you want to disorder it, you don't want it anymore, it's very difficult. Yeah, so you can purify negative actions that you've done. We're probably not going to talk about this now, but we'll do it in the Lamrim course, of course, because a big part of Buddhist practice is doing purification. We do a whole weekend on purification to really purify negative karma, but because we don't have the fine yet, there's very little interest in doing purification, because we don't feel these imprints, they have not manifested yet. And once they have manifested, we can't purify them anymore because they've already manifested. So because we don't feel them, there's very, very little interest. But then again, if that trust is there, then we know how to disorder something in the internet where you can cancel your order. There is a button in the karma system where you can cancel. But it needs specific things, and that is, I don't know if Glenn already talked about this, did he? About purification? Okay. So, just so that I do something that is written on the program, what I should supposed to, I don't even have it, so I have a good excuse also, what I'm supposed to do. Anyway, we still have tomorrow, we have this evening, and we have tomorrow. So about the structure of the path. The path has been made into 3 categories or into 3 levels. So it's very good to know these levels. And in each level is like different topics. So for example, you have kindergarten, then you have primary school, and then you have high school or university or gymnasium or whatever you call it here, I don't know. Yeah, so there's different levels, and then of course there's different practices. So the lowest level, the goal is that you practice for a good rebirth, not even for a good life. Yeah? That you really consider death and next lives, and you practice for a good rebirth. But what does that mean? It means that if you practice for a good rebirth, you abstain from negative karma, to do negative actions. So already your life now becomes easier, I think. Maybe not easier in terms what people are, how they behave with you. But I think a person who is non-harming, even in Israel, is accepted better by others than somebody who is constantly angry, as I say, constantly angry, constantly complaining, constantly and people just don't want to be with these people. And if you can't trust that person, you don't want to be together with them. So if you work for your next life, if you kind of think about what do I have to do in order to have a good rebirth, there's a lot of benefit already in this life. You don't forget this life. This life is very important because it's now that we do create the causes to be able to continue on the path, because that should be the motivation. Why do I want to have a good rebirth? Because I need conditions. If we have time this weekend, we'll talk about these conditions. Then I need conditions to be able to continue with this path. Yeah? Because if your life is too difficult, there's no way you can practice. So that is the lowest level, that is the goal. And what you think about in this lowest level, or the topics, the practices in this lowest level, is you start to think about what is called precious human rebirth. You start to be really appreciative about the situation that you have now. You start to become a little bit one-sided. You leave the negative things aside, and you look at the good things that you have. Then afterwards return. Yeah? So that's just for the beginning. So I think it's very skillful also if you go, like for example, if you're a psychotherapist, if you start to point out the faults of the person and the weaknesses of the person from the beginning, that's not very skillful. How many of you are therapists? Do you know that you are the country where there's always in the courses the most therapists in Israel?
Yes.
Yeah. But in Switzerland, we don't even have one. We have nurses in Switzerland, nurses and doctors. No psychotherapists.
We are not all psychotherapists.
Okay. But still trying to help people. So same, if you work with the body also, if you have to give a very strong medicine, first you have to build the body up. Otherwise the body can't take it. Yeah? So it's quite good first also in psychotherapy to maybe make the person aware of what is still okay in their life. Maybe also that even I think would work for a child, to start to look at the positive things. And just to hold the child, I love you so much, which comes totally from the bottom of your heart. So that the child can feel that he or she is appreciated. That is the best remedy for children. Yeah? No matter what they do, even if they're angry or nasty or aggressive, never stop loving them. This is what the Dalai Lama always says. Never stop loving your children. And show them and tell them that you love them. Yeah. It's the best education that we can give them. To learn them how to love themselves. Very good. Very nice. But also being firm sometimes. Again, love doesn't mean, don't go to the extreme. Yeah? Love doesn't mean you let them do whatever they want. Right? Okay, so that's the first. The first topic it's called precious human rebirth. You see the preciousness of it because we have all these freedoms and richnesses. It's called. We'll probably take it into tomorrow or something. And you start to appreciate it, and you want to do something with it. Instead of constantly complaining about what you don't have, we start to take what we have and work with this. So this is what I said yesterday at the beginning. We start to check up. Do I have what I need? If it's yes, no need to complain. If it's, well, not all of it, then try to see, can I get it? And how can I get it? If certain things are missing, like going on a journey, you also have to check, do I have what I need? Do I have my passport? Did I book my ticket? Do I have a visa? So we say, I don't have the visa. What do? You stay at home? No, you get your visa, and then you go. Yeah? So the second question that you have to ask yourself is, will it last? Because this is you know, we got, oh, not now, no, first, weather is, oh, here, it's again not working. In Switzerland, the weather is so nice, why would I stay inside? Here the weather is very nice, that's why I stay inside. So it's also, it's relative, it's nothing to do with, you know, what is nice weather and what is not nice weather. You know, like Leora, at one point I sent you an email from Switzerland. I said, it was so beautiful. I said, greetings from a very sunny Switzerland. And she wrote back, what's so good, what's so great about sunny weather?
It was August in Israel. It was a wonderful sunny day also.
So that's it. So it's all just, you know, whatever you call beautiful day is a beautiful day. Still today, I think it's a beautiful day today. Fantastic. The people are full. Okay, will it last? So we think about, no. Because why? Because we're dying. We're dying every moment. You know, we have this habit also of putting categories. You make the living and the dying. We're all dying. Maybe sometimes we die before the ones who are already labeled dying by accident or heart attack or whatever. That's another thing we don't understand, that we're dieable, all of us. So if we would realize that, I think that we would behave totally different with other people sometimes also. When we know we can lose them. There's so much regret sometimes when people die. Okay. Will it last? No. So if I want to do something, I need to do it. I need to start now. Then the next thought is, what will come after death? So then we start to study the law of cause and effect. What do my actions have as consequence in the future? So we start to study that law. There's a big section in the text about this. And then we start to look, okay, from whom is this coming? Who is saying that? And then we start to study the qualities and features, aspects of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So if you have these topics, and you trust the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, because you've been examining them, and you trust the law of cause and effect, you would then act according to that, and, you know, trusting not just up here, but also in your behavior, like the camera is on. If that hits home, that this karma camera is all on the time, it still hasn't hit home with me, by the way. It's still also kind of, I know it, but I still don't care sometimes. But that takes a long time. So then you would have a good rebirth every time around, because you're not creating the causes for suffering rebirth. Okay? But then we start to look at the other side. Then we go to the middle level. So the lowest level is to have a good life now, but also like a good rebirth. So then we go to the middle level, and the middle level, the topics there are the Four Noble Truths. That we start to develop renunciation. We start to see that even though I am born in Switzerland, to rich parents, I have a healthy body, I have a lot of friends, still at any moment the mind can go into depression, it can panic, my kids can come out totally wrong, you know, the country might get invaded, or I might lose my mind, or whatever. Still, there is a lot of things that if I would have a choice, I would not choose it. Rich people are also frustrated and have stress, believe it or not. We as not so rich people, I point to me because I'm not so rich. I mean, I'm still rich, I have enough, so for me that's good enough. It's rich enough, I have enough for the moment, so I consider myself as rich. Because there's nothing in this world that I couldn't buy that I would want. There's a lot of things that I can't buy, but I don't want them. Yeah, so then why would I feel poor? I don't lack anything that I can't afford, that I would want. Yeah. So even the rich people have, you know, they get sick, they get depressed, they have fears, they're frustrated, they have stress because they don't know what to do with their money. I just got a letter the other day from somebody from Australia, I don't know how to answer, where he says, well, you know, we don't have children, we're rich, I don't know, I could give my money to an institution, but I don't know what I should do with my money, because for my nephews and nieces it's far too much. So it was interesting to see my reaction to it, to say, oh, I will answer immediately. I thought, hey, You know, I don't even know the person. He saw a YouTube video about here in Israel, like when I kind of said something, and he thought it was good. So, yeah. So it can also be a problem, not knowing where to put all your belongings. Believe it or not, difficult to believe, isn't it?
Oh, it's a big responsibility, karma-wise.
It's a very big responsibility. So we could go into big discussion about this. For example, also giving your organs is a big responsibility, because whom are you giving it to? Who is going to get it? We don't know. So are we going to give it? Or yes, no. Life is difficult. This is what the Buddha says. That's the first noble truth. You make that decision is wrong. You make that decision is also wrong. You know, because we have dualistic view, all our decisions are basically flawed. They're not right because we do it with the wrong view of real existence, the real me, the real money, giving it to a real other, and that's mistaken. So there's things that are very mistaken that create a lot of suffering, and others that are kind of conventionally right. They don't create suffering, but they create only temporarily happiness. So this combination of body and mind, even though outside conditions are perfect, it's still very sensitive. It can go into dissatisfaction and suffering quite quickly. It doesn't need much. It needs a lot to keep it healthy and happy and content and relaxed, but it needs very little to destroy all that. So that is dukkha, which is the first noble truth. That's what the Buddha said. So then, when you understand this and you understand the causes which are inside in our mind, the negative imprints, the negative emotions, then there's a wish should come up, a natural wish. I want to get out of here. I've had enough of this being reborn again and again and again and again and again, under the control of these negative emotions and karma. It was not necessary. If that would be the law, if it's a law that that the mind has negative emotions, and it by nature, and they're mixed with that mind, like, you know, if you pour water into water, that you can't separate it anymore. If that would be nature, then of course we couldn't do anything, but it's not. They're not oneness with the mind. He said the mind by itself is totally pure. Yeah. So that's a good thing to start to believe. So then the wish to get out of it comes up, and then you start to practice also karma, working with your negative emotions, and so on. Then, of course, taking refuge, studying Buddhism, practicing Buddhism, and especially emptiness. So there you practice what is called the 3 higher trainings: ethical conduct, concentration, wisdom. That would allow you to have a direct perception of absence of inherent existence after, you know, whatever you stand with your practice, and you would not be reborn again under the control of karma and delusion. You would go into what is called liberation, nirvana. Okay? So that's the middle level. For you to get out of this compulsive being reborn again and again and again and again. What you practice there is the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links. This is what you study, and the practice is ethical conduct. You train, very consciously, you train ethical conduct, concentration, samatha, and wisdom. That's what you do with Glenn. Like Laura said, in the morning you do shamatha, and in the afternoon you do from the wisdom side. Or from the method side. Huh? From the method side. Okay. So that's the middle level. Your own self-liberation. Please do never criticize that oh, they're very selfish and all that. You see, if the world would be rid of me, there would be one person less to pollute, there would be one person less to destroy other people's minds, there would be one person less to take resources. So that's already quite a good thing. But the world doesn't need me to be happy and to survive. Yeah? So at least I wouldn't destroy anybody's peace of mind anymore. Now you can also say, yeah, but then you can't help. So then if you want to help, it's the highest level. If you say, no, I think that is a bit selfish, or it's a bit of waste also, to have all this effort for just one person to liberate themselves out of samsara. But it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Most of the people at the time of the Buddha practiced that vehicle. Yeah? It's called the founder vehicle. It's the basis then for the higher vehicle. If you don't practice that, you cannot go into the higher vehicle. You can't separate these two. You can't say I'm in the higher vehicle, the higher goal of full enlightenment, but I'm not interested in practicing ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. I don't need it because I have bodhicitta, I can do whatever I want. I like that. So then the highest level is, I want to attain full awakening in order to be able to benefit others. So what you practice there is you learn what is bodhicitta, this mind of enlightenment. This is we do in the Shantideva group course. Yeah, how does one learn to be what is called bodhisattva? Bodhi means awakening. Sattva means being, meaning becoming a being that is on the path to full awakening. Full awakening, in order to have the qualities of a Buddha, which is omniscience, like universal wisdom, universal compassion, like for all beings, effortlessly, continuously, uninterruptedly, and having skillful means to guide others to that state. Having these qualities in the mind. And this, everybody can attain that state. Because the nature of the mind is pure, and they call this Buddha nature. Like that. Because the mind is empty of anything already there, it can go wherever you want it to go, to make to go. It can go to the deepest hells, where there's a lot of suffering, and it can attain enlightenment. And usually they say everybody, I mean, this not, but like, actually because this, this wish for happiness is always there. This wish to be free from suffering is naturally always there. It's our Buddha nature calling us, so that at one point people will start to go in that direction. Not because the world of religion now has become Buddhism. It has nothing to do with if you're born into it or not. It's whether you accept that you have this potential and you want to develop it with these methods. That's what is important, not where you're born. If you grow up with these ideas, of course, then it's much more helpful. So you practice what is bodhicitta, you practice developing it, and then you practice what is called the 6 perfections. They are generosity, ethical conduct, patience, enthusiasm or effort or whatever you want to call it. Enthusiasm is a bit nicer than effort. Enthusiastic effort, so we can make both because we do need to make effort. Concentration and wisdom. And then, that's it. Then when you finish the path, then you are fully awakened and effortlessly, spontaneously, you're just there to benefit others in whatever form. So it's like becoming Superwoman or Superman with limitless possibilities, but not omnipotent. The same way you can be the best doctor or psychotherapist. If the patient is not following your advice, you cannot help them. So it's the same. They can point out the way. They know what they have to say. This is why there's so many Buddhist teachings. They're so different because it was meant for different audiences. Yeah? And it's dynamic. It keeps changing because it adapts itself to society. Here in the West, it becomes more like psychology. In Tibet, there's a lot of religion involved, a lot of devotion and religion and rituals and all that. Here in the West, we can't relate to that so well. But they can, because they came from the Burn tradition, where there was like spirits and all this, so they have a lot of these kind of things going around. Yeah. So this is the structure of the path, these 3 levels. So it's very good to learn that. What is practiced in which level, because then you know exactly where the teachings fit in. Okay? All right? But if you have questions, keep them for in half an hour or in 25 minutes, and then we'll see whether we can, or this evening maybe. Yeah? Maybe we do a meditation at 5:30. Okay? We'll do a meditation on appreciating our situation without having received the boom, 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 boom teachings. Okay? we'll try. I'll try. I'll try to make it in a way so that it's still understandable. And what is important that you don't then feel guilty. You know, like Swiss people. So many Swiss people are depressed because they have